Hello and welcome. We will start with a musical performance by Jakuba. Then we will formally open the event. Jakuba, c'est à toi, s'il te plaît.
Ok, bonjour tout le monde. J'espère que je suis quand même réceptible.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me well. I'm Yakuba Ibrahim. I'm an expert on the rights of CDWDs. I'm an artist. I'm a reggae singer from Nigeria. I've written a song that is called Slavery. We will listen to this song together. I hope the sound will be good, because I've got some energy issues, but we'll see how it works.
Get up and stand up for your right. Get up and stand up for your right. Never, never give up the fight. Slavery is not a good life. Get up and stand up for your right. Get up and stand up for your right. Never, never give up the fight. Slavery is not a good life. Nous avons tous le même sang. Nous avons tous le même droit. Mais pourquoi cette pratique-là qui fait la différence des uns et des autres? Slavery is not a good life. Slavery to make us crazy. Slavery is an abomination. Oh, no, 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 it must be punished. Get up and stand up for your right. Get up and stand up for your right. Never, never give up the fight. Slavery is not a good life. Get up and stand up for your right. Get up and stand up for your right. Never, never give up the fight. Slavery is not a good life. Laisse libre les hommes, laisse égaux. Devant les droits défendus, on est tous le même. C'est étonnant que cette pratique existe encore. Certains crèvent alors que d'autres se favorisent. Je chante au nom de tout ce peuple incarcéré et maltraité. Oui, pas de liberté, pas de droits, ça blesse au fond, ça touche le cœur. Il dit faut faire la différence en plus. All right, inhalation. Get up, stand up for your right. Get up, stand up for your right. Never, never give up the fight. Slavery is not a good life. Get up, stand up for your right. Get up, stand up for your right. Never, never give up the fight. Slavery is not a good life. Slavery is not a good life. Listen. We must fight for our rights. Yeah, man. Never give up the fight. All right. Ils n'ont pas connu de liberté, comment veux-tu qu'ils font une vie? Les femmes deviennent des warriors et les enfants esclaves à vie. Travail physique, travail moral, ces gens sont dominés. Ces gens-là, ils ne sont pas responsables. Ils prennent des décisions déraisonnables. Alors qu'on parle des droits de l'homme. Mais est-ce que tous ces droits sont applicables, effectifs et raisonnables? Encore la situation de servitude, encore d'esclaves, encore de maîtres. Oh non, 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 ces gens, c'est favorisent. Get up and stand up for your right. Get up and stand up for your right. Never, never give up the fight. Slavery is not a good life. Get up and stand up for your right. Get up and stand up for your right. Never, never give up the fight. Slavery is not a good life. Stand up for your right. Don't give up the fight. Don't give up the fight. Don't give up the fight. We can never give up the fight. We can never give up the fight. We can never give up the fight. Yes, man. This one is dedicated for other people, you know. Slavery is not a good life. Such soldiers Zion represent again fire, roots, reggae, natural combination from Niger, you know. Boom.
Merci, merci Jakuba, c'est parfait. Merci beaucoup. Welcome everyone. It's an energetic start, and thank you so much for this contribution. Before anything else, I want to take care of logistics. We have interpretation available in this meeting. Please, since we will have interventions in different languages, choose at the bottom interpretation, and there you can choose your preferred language, in that case English. I'll say now the same in French just to make sure that our French friends also can connect adequately. Bonjour à tous et toutes et merci encore une fois Yakuba pour ta performance incroyable et c'est vraiment énergétique et ça c'est qu'on a besoin dans cette lutte qu'on a. J'aimerais bien partager avec vous qu'on a interprétation disponible pendant cette réunion. En bas, il y a une petite boule qui dit interprétation. Là, vous pouvez choisir français pour écouter et participer pendant toute la réunion comme vous voulez. Thank you. You can message me also in the chat if you have any trouble, technical things. And with that, I hand over to our esteemed moderator, Priyanka Sami, who is, needs no introduction really, from Frida and also GFOD, a known feminist in the field, and she will moderate our event today. Please, Priyanka, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Johannes, and thank you, Yakuba, for really setting the tone of this meeting. Stand up for your rights. Baba Sahib Ambedkar, who is the chief architect of the Indian Constitution and really Dalit icon, very famously said that this is a battle not for money or for power. It is a battle for freedom, for the reclamation of human personality. And Yakuba, in your performance, that's what came through. Stand up for your rights. So Opre, Roma, and Bhim to everyone. I am Priyanka, and I'm a Dalit feminist activist from India, and I'm associated with, of course, GFOD, Frida, the Young Feminist Fund, and also the National Federation of Dalit Women in India. And I'm really grateful to the Global Forum and Communities Discriminated on Work and Dissent, GFOD, for giving me this opportunity to moderate this very, very critical discussion. So I welcome each one of you to the UNECE official side event. Thank you for taking out time and joining us for this very crucial discussion on Roma and diaspora youth from communities discriminated on work and dissent, building sustainable cities and communities. I think at the outset, before we dive deep into the conversation, I would really like to set the stage. Who are communities discriminated on work and dissent? I think it really is $1 million question, and it's very important to answer this. So basically, communities discriminated and work and dissent are amongst the most vulnerable, stigmatized, and ostracized communities, in terms of socio-economic, political, cultural development processes. It really is a part of a social, hierarchical, and intergenerational discrimination that is sort of passed on from one generation to the other. And it is widely prevalent across the globe, even till this date. Communities discriminated on work and dissent are in Africa, in Asia, in Latin America, and Europe, and have sort of throughout history and into the present day continue to face caste-based untouchability, slavery, forced labor, segregation, and extreme forms of systemic, structural, and targeted violence. Where about 270 million people who face a very distinctive type of social structure distributed among various societies across the globe that sort of enacts a very particular set of human rights violations against us. One condition is that, our condition has yet to be fully recognized by the global community, including the United Nations and its various institutions and agencies. So we as CWD, it's important to understand that we do not share a common history or origin. but a common scarring by a social structure that ascribes to us a permanent status of devalued personhood and requires of us performance of stigmatized and exploited forms of labor. So, in Asia, where the Dalit communities, in Africa, where the Haratin communities, of course, in in Europe, where the Roma and Romani, in Japan, where the Burakumin, and where the Quilombolas in Brazil. And we face a very, very distinct type of discrimination based on work and descent. I think just to sort of tell you in a nutshell, there are three major categories of oppression and stigmatization that we face. One is the stigma of impurity, pollution, or uncleanliness by birth, sort of reinforced by manual professions. In most cases, discrimination based on work and descent stems from cultural beliefs that label a victimized community as unclean or polluted. The second feature is endogamy, the inability to marry outside one's low caste or status. So ensuring each caste or social group is clearly de-alienated from another. The notion of purity and pollution is used to justify endogamy. Crucially, the practice of endogamy is deeply intertwined with the sexual violence and the enslavement of women and girls and control over their reproductive systems. In the case of the Haratin people in Africa, the enslaved status is inherited through the mother, and thus control of women, girls, and their reproductive system is vital to sort of upholding the status quo. I think the third most important thing is segregation, and it speaks directly to our topic today. So, a segregation of public and private spaces that sort of mark CWD communities as less than human. Segregation is portrayed as the normal, desired social order to maintain and ensure stability for all people. The mechanism is used by the dominant groups to separate themselves geographically from communities discriminated on work and descent, who often live in settlements where the land is less fertile or with no limited access to natural resources, or limited access to education, healthcare, and other public services. In addition, these lands have fewer protection from growing effects of climate change, such as floods, fires, drought, etc. For instance, according to a 2018 report by the European Union Agency for Fundamental Rights, 75% of the Romas live in rural areas in Europe, and they're more likely to experience poverty, social exclusion, and discrimination than non-Roma populations. So therefore, in a nutshell, if we were to say, I think the common thread here is all communities based on discriminated on work and descent do not have equitable access to basic services such as food, water, sanitation, transport, housing, education, healthcare, among others. So today we'll, sort of dive deep into the discussion on building sustainable cities and communities from the lens of CDWD communities. Therefore, I would like to invite our speakers to shed light and dive deep into the topic. I will open up the floor for questions and comments once all the speakers are done with their presentations. Today, I'm really glad to be a part of this illustrious panel of CDW youth activists. And I would really like to call Anna Maria from Slovakia, a brief introduction about her before I sort of ask her a question and then she takes over. So Anna Maria is based in Brussels, working for ERGO, the European Roma Grassroots Organizations Network, which works with 30 Roma and pro-Roma organizations from all across Europe on advocating against anti-Gypsyism and really working for positive change for the Roma people. So welcome, Anna Maria. And I think a question for you is, the Roma are the largest minority in Europe. And with the ERGO network you work in, more than 30 countries for Europe rights. So what solutions and initiatives have you come across that specifically look at Roma and how to make cities and communities more sustainable? So any thoughts and suggestions are welcome. So over to you, Anna Maria.
Thank you so much, Priyanka. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Anna Maria Pschenkova, and I work for the European Roma Grassroots Organization and for the Global Forum of Communities Discriminated on Work and Decent as a right expert. I am very honored to be here today with you. First of all, I would like to apologize for keeping my camera off, but I'm sick and I don't feel very okay. So if you don't mind, I will keep it off.
Please go ahead, Anna Maria, and thank you so much for joining us in spite of feeling unwell. We really, really appreciate your efforts.
Thank you.
So yes, over to you.
Okay, so first of all, I would like to give you a bit of information about the organization I work for in Brussels. The Ergo Network organization shares the everyday realities of Roma communities, which are hardly taken into account in policy development and implementation. Today, our network brings together more than 30 Roma and pro-Roma organizations from all over Europe, which are primarily oriented on active citizenship, shared responsibilities, and grassroots empowerment. The aim of the members is to convince policymakers that positive change for Roma is possible when anti-Gypsyism is recognized and tackled as the root cause for inequality and exclusion in our society. The mission of our organization is focused on combating anti-Gypsyism and Roma poverty, to strengthening Roma civil society participation in decision-making processes at national and European level. I would like to give you more about the political background, and then I will narrow it down and speak more about the concrete example at the social level. In Europe, we have the commitment of member states of the European Union having the Roma Strategic Integration Framework, which is particularly called the European Union Roma Strategic Framework for Equality, Inclusion and Participation. The member states have been mandated by the European Commission and Council to take into consideration recommendations and European Union frameworks and implement it into their national strategies for improving living conditions for Roma people at the regional and local levels. And exactly because of this, a lot of projects in Europe are already running in regard to integration of Roma or are in process of being implemented. I mean, we know that this is a long battle, but it's definitely a good start. The funding is coming only from the European Union money, but it's not. So it means that it's not funded on the from the national budgets. But along with this, there is a lot of initiatives like Norway grants, which are giving the civil society visibility and possibility to work, and Ergo Network is a part of it as well. So therefore, I would like to speak about the good practices of my organization. First and foremost, I would like to highlight the importance of the transnational cooperation among our members' organizations, which are pretty much visible in almost every project which is run. And the project New Solution to Old Problems is not an exception. In the framework of this long-running project, as I mentioned, New Solution to Old Problem is about the exchange of new types of approaches in the field of Roma integration, funded by the European Environmental Agency and Norway grants. And we decided to use storytelling to raise awareness and bring good example of local projects. With this by the contracting our partners in over 10 different countries in Europe. But for you, I just picked 2 examples. One is from Turkey and then the other one is from Lithuania. So the first one from Turkey, it was about the empowerment and the solidarity against the domestic violence. Roma women have a little trust in the institutions and know little about their rights and the protection mechanism against domestic violence. And they usually don't show a high degree of solidarity when one of them reports the violence they have suffered or speak publicly. And the way how this project was implemented was in the form of organized meetings on the protection against the domestic violence and solidarity, which were held with Abdal women for 8 weeks. This meeting enabled women to learn more about women's rights and a protection mechanism from violence. Each week, Abdel women and the project team met in the neighborhood for information and experience sharing. They have discussed like what kinds of survival strategies they use and what rights they have. The observation project team had was that the number of participants in the meeting increased during that period, and that they also observed the growing self-confidence and well-being of the women, which was like really impressive. And from the side of the participants, women claimed that the meetings gave them the sense of the empowerment. Another example was held in Lithuania, where cultural elements were used as a tool for successful integration. So dancing is like well known by the majority of Roma culture, but at the same time, many Roma think that non-Roma can dance. So they started to organize like dance classes where young Roma and non-Roma were brought together. And their like very interesting outcomes were observed. Roma were sure that nobody can dance Roma dances but Roma, but they realized that non-Roma can also do it, and they felt that they were like sincerely interested, what changed their opinions about non-Roma. On the other hand, the non-Roma people get like acquainted with the Roma tradition, and they were not afraid, and that like makes them to change their mind as well. So definitely in this example, we can see like the biggest achievement was about the reality that these two communities communicated finally, and they felt like they are on their way toward the integration. There is also the project called Roma Youth Kicking Off Decade to Counter Anti-Gypsyism, which is about the empowering young Roma from 8 Central and Southeastern European countries to campaign against anti-Gypsyism. Just to give you a little bit of context, what is anti-Gypsyism? It's like the specific racism directed against the people perceived as gypsies by non-Roma. There was already held the Summer Academy where youth were taught about their involvement in the new large-scale campaigns, and they were like directly asked to implement their proposed project on the national levels for bringing more awareness and understanding into our society. Continuing this campaign, we will also facilitate the study session in September where young Roma and non-Roma will meet, and they will just spend some time together, and we will be discussing the topics of anti-Gypsyism. I would also like to raise another example. The Roma Graduate Preparation Program at the Central European University. The RGPP is an intensive 10-month program that prepares Roma graduates with an interest in social sciences and humanities. And then they are like able to compete for places on the master level courses and international recognized universities. In that period of 10 months, they are learning academic English, and they are preparing for further studies in their chosen field. And Ergo is also pretty much involved in this program. Last but not least, it's not really connected with my organization that I'm working with, like Ergo Network, but it's a very good example from Slovakia. Like in Slovakia, as in many European countries, Roma children and youth face a huge discrimination in regard to education. Like they're usually put directly to special schools where they are labeled as being retarded. And however, in Slovakia, we have like the organization which is called OMAMA. And in recent years, they made like the huge impact on educating and leading Roma children and youth. The program is kind of established on the principle of peer-to-peer learning, but it's not literally peer-to-peer, but actually someone from the Roma community and Roma settlements, and we are speaking about the segregated Roma communities and settlements, so that one person is educated and trained to be OMAMA. That's how the position is called. And then she or he is passing the knowledge on the rest of the community, especially on the children and youth. The reason why this program was actually, or like this organization was created, is because like usually in Slovakia, like when non-Roma were coming to the segregated communities, they come with the like, with the feeling or like with the approach to change them. Like they were even saying like, we came to change you. And usually those Roma very definite, they just closed and they never wanted to like cooperate with them. So this program was created to have someone from that community who would be able to learn them and lead them. Okay, thank you so much. This is so far from my side about the good practices that I know that is happening.
Thank you so much, Anna Maria, for sharing strategies adopted by Ergo and also about talking about the peer-to-peer learning sessions in Slovakia. I'm sure there'll be questions for you. So if you could please sort of hang around till the end, that'll be most useful. I know you're not feeling too well, but just sort of stay with us a bit longer, please. So over to Rohan now. Rohan is a Dalit youth activist originally from Bangladesh, but currently studying project management as an exchange student in the USA. Rohan is engaged with G4 as a CWD rights activist, a rights expert as well. And Rohan, we would like to ask you, how has your stay and education in the US inspired you to address issues in Bangladesh for communities discriminated on work and descent? What are some of the initiatives that you found most inspiring and those that you think work best? So over to you, Rohan.
Hi, everyone. My name is, Priyanka mentioned, my name is Rohan Kumar Das. I'm from the Dalit community and I'm studying project management in USA as part of my exchange program. So I prepared one presentation for this event. I would like, so breaking barriers, creating sustainable cities for Dalit and diaspora community. So what is the importance of sustainable cities and communities for community discriminated on work on descent? So for me, I think the importance is equitable access to basic services, healthcare and education and transportations, access to jobs and opportunities and support economic growth. Then economic community planning, inclusive community planning where everybody gets to say regardless of their race and ethnicity or religion. Challenges faced by CDWD communities. As I'm from Bangladesh and I have been told to talk about diaspora community as well, so I have combined all the challenges, not all, mostly faced the challenges that the people face in USA as a diaspora minority community and in Bangladesh as a Dalit. So for me, I would say the most important thing for Dalits in Bangladesh are the education, because we do not have proper education. We have lacking in our own language. So we have lacking in our own language. Then the other challenges is faced by housing. We do not have our designated house, not permanent house. We have been moved from one place to another, So it's going on and on. Then there is discrimination and racism. This is a lot going on here in USA. I would say that in big cities, people are really they're really judgy about it. So that and employment issues, cultural barriers and language barriers. Some examples, concrete examples that I would like to talk about what I have faced or what I have seen in my life with these things. So I would like to say about my school life that what I faced when I was in 8th grade. In our country, we have system to change from one field to another particular field. So I was trying to choose science as my major for 9th grades. I went to the school and I applied for it. My grade was good, but they didn't give me science because I was the only Dalit student on the school. So because of that, I didn't got the science. Then there is another problem that I would like to talk about is housing. I have been here since 8 months now, but when I came here, like before coming here, there was like problem within our city. So the mayor of our city, she tried to she removed us from the place where we used to live. So we separated like each other wherever we can go. Because of that, I'm so sorry for the. I will attach some videos if I like my laptop is not working well. I'm so sorry for the trouble. So my city's people, they like few weeks back they went to the city corporation, they protested against mayor why she is doing like that. So the problem is we do not have permanent house and she is moving us from one place to another where is not possible to stay. And she is saying that if we keep protesting, that she is going to take our houses back. So what we are going to do with the house? This is one of the biggest problem that we are facing. Then there is one discrimination that I have seen at work in USA, that was in Seattle, USA, that someone from South Asian, like India, he was discriminated at work because he was from Dalit community. The last one is, I would say, as specifically for Dalit community, that there is no light bearer for our Dalit community. So I know that this sounds, as of my experience, I would say that there is no good leader who can like fight for our rights. There is no one who has like proper right and who goes and talks to people about our problems. So I would really like that if we can fix this problem, like a light bearer who can represent our Dalit community to the people, to the world, then I think it would be a really good example. As I can show you guys, like this Sonrani Das, she's from Dalit community. She's trying so hard to get a job to teach students in their own languages, because the problem is our own language. Because of our own language, we are not being able to learn more. We have been like in school, we use Bengali languages, and because of that, the Dalit community people, we speak Hindi languages. So because of that, there is language gap, and we like the children, they lose the interest of learning in Bengali. So she was trying to get a job to teach them in Bengali. So teach them in Hindi so that they learn and they can enjoy as well at the education. But even after trying so hard, she couldn't get any job or anything like at that level. So I would like to say that. For my laptop. I'm so sorry for my laptop. There was few more slides. Okay, so to solve those problems, I feel like we need a really good leader who can lead us for the languages problem that we face. Because I feel like if we can, like education is the place where we can get the proper people who will like training them, giving them proper training and there is no one who can represent our community properly. So I would really like if we can get the students back on track, if they have their knowledges, like what are our rights, what like, so what's our rights, so that they can fight, they can protest, they can stand up for themselves. I'm so sorry, I had few more slides, but my laptop is not working. So sorry. Yeah, that's how it is. I'm so sorry.
No, don't worry about that, Rohan. We all face technical issues. And thank you for your sharing your story with us. It was very insightful. And about, I beg to differ with you about leaders. I think that, we Dalits have come so far, both at the national level, regional level, and also at the international level, because of those who came before us and of more than 50, 60 years of advocacy at different levels. But I do agree with you that, awareness generation, training, and really strengthening second line of leadership within our movements is very critical. So, but we shouldn't forget that we do stand on the shoulders of leaders who came before us. So thank you so much, Rohan, and I'm sure there'll be questions for you later. But now we sort of invite Sophia, who is a young Dalit activist and a CDWD rights expert, working currently as a program associate in FEDO, Feminist Dalit Organization in Nepal. Sophia, I would like to ask you that access to water and sanitation is often denied to communities discriminated on work and descent. This is connected to, of course, the stigma of purity and pollution. So what are some of the programs and initiatives you have in place currently that allow these communities to access drinking water and sanitation? So if you could throw some light on that, that would be really interesting. Over to you, Sophia.
Yeah, thank you so much. First of all, thank you so much for this opportunity. Namaste, everyone. This is Sophia Lamichani, and I'm from Nepal. And currently, I'm working as in feminist Dalit organization FEDO, advocating on Dalit rights and Dalit women rights. So yeah, I personally belong to the Dalit community. As we belong to Dalit community are the most vulnerable, oppressed, and marginalized group of people in Nepal, and they are considered as untouchable. And more than half of the population from Dalit communities are under the poverty line. Mostly Dalit women, they suffer from various types of discrimination and violence, like caste-based discrimination and gender-based violence. Dalit women, they face triple discrimination, as they are Dalit, they are women, they are poor, they are economically, socially, and politically backward, which leads to their educational deprivation, and they have menial employment opportunities and poor of representation in Dalit decision making. In decision making process, Dalit women really have. And Dalits are often situated outside the urban neighborhoods, and where they lack access to electricity, water, and sanitization, and they do not have road connection to the major city areas, and they are mostly affected by any kinds of natural disasters like flood, landslides, as they reside in the hill areas and they reside near the river banks. So in urban areas as well, most of the Dalit people, they are landless, and they are compelled to live in slum areas. So in the slum areas, they do not have access to pure drinking water and proper sanitation facilities, which may ultimately cause them different kinds of communicable disease, and which may lead to premature death as well. So these are the problems. And Dalit women, especially Dalit women, in rural areas, they do not have citizenship, as they are unaware of the importance of the citizenship document. So there are many problems there are many problems that Dalit and Dalit women face. So to address and mitigate those problems faced by the Dalit women and Dalit in general, we should collectively stand towards the government, especially the government should prioritize on creation on decent, dignified job. Sorry. And as well as access to education and training that can help Dalit communities to build skills and knowledge. As Dalit communities people, especially Dalit women, they do not have employment opportunities. So I think the government and different CSOs and UNECE agencies, they should focus to build Dalit and Dalit women skills and to develop the Dalit and Dalit skills and knowledges. And different NGOs and INGOs should improve access to water and sanitization for Dalit communities. This effort could include building water system, constructing toilets, and providing different education on hygiene and sanitation, and establishment of school and health institution near the Dalit residential areas. As different Dalit people, they have to walk to 3 to 4 hours to get to school, to go to school and to get any kind of health facilities. So so government should establish schools and health institutions near the Dalit residential areas. Government should provide different kinds of scholarship schemes to the Dalit women and Dalit students, as they are deprived from getting education and different employment opportunities and so on. So yeah, these are working in feminist Dalit organization, FEDO has been building different kinds of water tube, wells, taps, etc. And FEDO has built and made different health communities, health assistants, health worker, mobile clinics, and it has been distributing sanitary pads for the women's health, and FEDO have done different kinds of federal level evidence-based advocacy on water and sanitation to top marginalized community, and we have been doing different lobbying for water and for proper water and sanitation. Yeah, so yeah, these are the things. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sophia. That was really insightful and very interesting to learn of FEDO's interventions on the ground. So now I'll open up the floor for any questions or comments. It would also be really nice to hear from participants. If there's anything at all that you want to share, please feel free. So the floor is open for discussions now.
We also have Jakuba, who has not spoken, only had his song. He also wanted to make a small intervention if possible.
Oh yes, please, Jakuba. You're most welcome.
Ouais, merci beaucoup pour la parole. En fait, je voudrais un peu parler sur l'aspect A, comment est-ce que l'art, parce que moi, c'est surtout ça ma spécialité, c'est voir comment est-ce que l'art, les
Seeing how art, how cultural activities might help people, how music, how all of those things can help people from the from the society, but also it can touch governments and public authorities. How can we make sure that we are heard through art? So, for example, we do not want to make music out of the blue for nothing. We want to make music to change the lives of the people. So when you see what happened with Afro-American people, for example, singing was not something that was done only for pleasure. It was done first to create links, to say, we are there, we exist. And so they wanted to say, really, we deserve to be treated with all of our rights. And so I'd like to share something else. I did practice a training session in Aubervilliers in Paris in a theater. So I had a training in culture and communications. We worked with people that were living in the streets, who had no home in Paris, and we tried to reach those people, because these people are, for most of them, coming from Africa. Some came from Burkina Faso, Niger, the Ivory Coast, Senegal, etc., etc. But these people lived difficult situations. They were hustling at home, they were having difficulties to find a job, so they crossed the sea and they took these terrible risks to go to Paris. But they had nothing when they arrived. They had no rights. And so I worked in a school that was working with the theater in Aubervilliers in Paris. And so we wondered, what can we do for those people? How can we bring art to these people? Because art is sometimes something only done by wealthy people. And so we thought we really need to open the possibilities in terms of art for those people. We need to make sure that those people that have no documents, that are suffering under the sun, the rain, the cold weather, they can have access to art. So we trained them. How can you speak in front of people? How can you do theater, drama? How can you play music? And these people felt really something great. They felt that they got recognized through art, and that art could help them to change things. I think art actually already changed their lives. In Africa also, there's many things to do at the level of art. Where I come from in Niger, many communities are discriminated. People are discriminated, but it's not something that should happen. And it's something they are not responsible for. Maybe it's their grandparents who were slaves, and then the father inherits the stigma, etc., etc. It goes on through all the generations. And so the children that are born are victims of this situation, and they are facing all sorts of problems, all sorts of difficulties, for example, to work in the public sector or even to go to school. I saw, for example, a student who, it was a female student, and she was a slave descendant, and she was unable to continue studying after 3 years of studies at the university. She had to sort of run away from studies because she was a slave descendant. And she was always stigmatized. She was always looked down on by other people as a slave descendant. And so these stereotypes that society inflicted upon her forced her to leave school. She left the university. And it's actually all of her future that collapsed just because of this stigma. And so what I do believe is this: if we want mentalities to change in Africa, we really need to take those questions into account. We need to put an end to discrimination. We need to see how people work, and if people are good, well, they can work. We do not need to look at their past all the time, because children are victims, as I've said. Only their parents were slave, but children suffer from it. So now they say servant, but those guys are sort of slaves in a way. There's also another case I saw. There was a police officer. One of them, well, there were two police officers. One of them was a slave descendant and the other was not. they have both the same function in the police, but they will have different realities actually because of this stigma of descent. And so they suffer from this. The person that's from slave descent has difficulties all the time. Sometimes this person is struggling even to live with other peoples. He feels threatened. He feels threatened by his situation of slave descendant. So this was a story that a friend told me just recently, and it's only one example among many others. So if we want things to change, we need to make sure that people have their rights defended. We can't look at people's origins. We are in the 21st century. We need to live together, to share things together. Everyone should be equal. I think this is the way things should work. We need to take this question very seriously. And we really need to work to put an end to discrimination. Everyone needs to be equal. And I think we can do this through art. We need to encourage popular mobilization, popular art. It's the case very much so for music, because music is an easy way to have a message spread around, to change people's minds, even if it's really hard to change people's minds, of course. But it's something that we can achieve, that we can do if we try to have ways to raise awareness, to communicate way more with people, to make sure we understand what are the mechanisms behind discrimination. And we do just that in Niger. We need also the help of artists, of civil society, of activists also to put pressure on the state, because very often the laws exist, but they are not really applied. And so let us put an end to slavery, to all of those differences, those discriminations. So yes, that's what I wanted to say. I took a bit of time, but I'll stop just there. And if you have questions, I'm very much ready to answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jacoba, for that very moving and inspiring intervention. We really look to you for your leadership, especially how you use your voice and your music and activism to visibilize issues. So really, really appreciate your efforts. So thank you for that. And now I would like to invite Nariane from Brazil to say a few words.
Olá, bom dia. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are. Today, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the reality of the Quilombolan communities here in Brazil. Specifically, the population to which I have more access because I am a Quilombola. Here in Brazil, the communities look to do territorial management in their communities where there is environmental protection, where they can look after the integrity of the territory, the sustainable agriculture, education, social organization of the communities, the importance, bringing the importance of ancestrality, identity, and cultural heritage of those communities. We have hurdles we have to go through in order to manage this. Each community faces challenges, whether it's the lack of support of the federal government. We are currently facing new perspectives with this new government. We'll see if it improves in actual fact, but we still go through difficulties in relation to attaining a good management of our territories, of our land, and continue to be sustainable. For example, many communities don't have access to water, drinking water. And when they do, and they try to protect a river, for example, the monoculture, whether it's soy agriculture or tea tree agriculture, which in many cases difficult is the preservation in a sustainable manner. Content pollution through agrotoxins is also an issue for these communities. These are hurdles, these are challenges that we face. Those communities, the quilombolan communities that live in rural areas. We also face issues with the demarcation of our territories and the legalization of the land itself. Communities have this legalization on behalf of the federal government. Most of them have a certification of acknowledgement as a quilombolan community, and this makes our stay in those territories very difficult, as it does to the access of public policies, whether it's work, education, housing. In the case of education, for example, we don't have a specific program for the community, for students at the universities, for example. What we have are independent programs that each institution organizes. There is no organization that includes all universities. And depending on how it's organized, for example, for an educational facility, there is a policy for quotas for indigenous or quilombolan members or individuals and other minorities. We have the racial quota, which in a sense covers the quilombolan communities or tries to include them, and the indigenous communities as well, but most of them don't take into account the permanence of those students at the university and the difficulties of doing so, of staying in the studies, whether it's for financial reasons or travel reasons. Many times these individuals have to leave their rural communities and go to the big urban cities to continue to study. That the way to becoming a sustainable society would be to look at these needs at the peripheral and the quilombolan communities, indigenous communities, taking into consideration each specificity of each community. We also have difficulty in relation to access to public policies, in relation to staying in our lands, and financing for agriculture, such as agroecology, where there is a sustainable production, a relationship with nature that is harmonious. So this is very different to that which the government is used to financing, which is monoculture, using large quantities for production, or the cattle raising, with the use of toxins or genetically modified organisms or seeds, policies that don't include the quilombolan communities, within actions that involved organizations, for example, without non-for-profit organizations or companies that wish to invest in a project that benefits the quilombolan communities. The national coordination, the CONACI, has been developing such projects, looking for partnerships with organizations to bring some dignity, since the government doesn't give us that financial support, or from other public policies, which in a sense would help for us to stay in our territories. We also have challenges achieving the legalization of our lands. There are communities that for 20, 30, 40 years have been trying to have this legalization based on our legal system. And we see here great difficulties in this process. We see, for example, lack of employees that are capable or able to continue with these processes of legalization. When some part of the territory that has been invaded needs to be vacated, there is no defined budget to do so, to ensure that vacating to take place, or the legislation says that there needs to be an indemnity and paying off in a sense, and the government claims that there is no budget to do so. So these are challenges that I brought here that make it very difficult for our communities to continue to move forward with the sustainable system, this good living of the community, whether by external forces or the government itself, which in a sense doesn't structure public policies that the Quilomboan communities can have access to. The main challenge is education, since that is absolutely essential to move forward. So from the time that the government and the institutions don't take into account our needs as individuals, as quilombolas, our access to university, our cultural heritage, which is completely different from the rest of the society, we have difficulty to sustainably bring our work outside our communities, to show that it is possible to live in harmony with our environment, with the territory, and to have dignity here in Brazil. Those are my contributions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Narayani, for grounding the issues of the Quilambala. I think what you said are very, very critical points. So really appreciate your insights. And I see 3 hands raised up. Alion, over to you. And I would request each one of you to make shorter interventions, please, because we're running out of time. And also there's one question in the chat from Naveen. And I think that I'd really request Anna Maria to speak to that point. But for now, over to you, Alion. Thank you.
Good morning, bonjour à tout le monde. Je m'appelle Alion.
Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Alion. I actually right now live in the USA.
À Yakuba et Niger. Mais avant ma question,
I have a question to Yakuba from Niger, but before asking my question, I would like to put forward about communities discriminated on work and descent. As you know, in the 70s, there was very big droughts and a lot of displacements happened because of these droughts. And the majority of Haratin lost their goods and left their villages to arrive in big cities. And when they arrived in the big cities, they arrived in more modern life, but they weren't integrated to it. They do not belong in the usual neighborhoods. They were put outside of town in unsanitary housing situation. But little by little, with cultural activities, these neighborhoods became more usual, more livable. But the government, what they did, they took lands, good lands, and they give to the Haratin or to other discriminated people the bad lands, and they give the good lands to other people. And when the lands weren't inhabitable, they move them again and give the lands to other communities. I want to know if it's the same thing in Nigeria. And I have another question. Sorry, interpreter has a bit trouble hearing Alyun. There are people who have...
Oh, sorry, go ahead, go ahead. I thought you couldn't hear him, Kala. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Alyon.
I can't really hear him. Priyanka, can you ask he speak in the microphone or something if he has...
Alyon, can you speak right into the microphone? And I'm sorry, but if we could stick to just one question, because we have 3 more hands raised, if that's all right. I'm sorry for doing this.
No, I'm good with my first
all right,
question.
thank you, thank you. So Carla, it's just that one question. Thank you, Carla.
Je suis là, j'ai découpé le micro.
I'm sorry, the
Alors,
question was...
je réponds à la question d'Alioune.
So I'm going to answer Alyun's question. Here in Niger, we have these communities, these people who have no land in reality, that leave the village to settle in town. And when they settle in town, I think it's the same thing. What they do is they do activities which aren't noble activities. So they either work as servants, or if they are young girls often who live, for instance, forced marriages, because we have lots of cases of women who were forced to marry another man, and after they can't stay in this situation and they flee from the village and they come to the city, and what they can do is only do sex work, or they become servants. And the problem with being these work as a servant, they are exploited. They have no rights, and salary are awful. They do all the bad work, all the tough work. They do all the housework. They also buy the products, and in reality, they are like slaves, because I think it's a form of modern slavery. So I hope I answered Alyun's question.
Okay, thank you, Yakuba. Thank you, Ali. And thank you, Carla, for that. Over to Dr. Bishnu Pariyar. Requesting you to please keep your comment short, because we're running out of time. Thank you.
Just to add to some of the interesting things and some of the harrowing things that friends and colleagues been sharing with us globally. I have been collaborating with friends and colleagues in Nepal on a particular research stream on structural inequalities. And what we've been arguing through our research is that no matter how equal the law actually is, if an individual or society, if an individual or a communities, they fall within the certain socioeconomic hierarchy, the equality in law alone is not enough to rectify some of the injustice, many of the injustice that this particular community has suffered historically. And many of the challenges that we continue to face these days are the manifestations of those historical injustices. And for example, what my colleague from Nepal earlier was presenting is also the continuations of the manifestations of historical injustice. And we could talk in in terms of wash facilities. We could talk in terms of access to electricity, irrigation canals, and the Dalit communities have been pushed towards the periphery of the village and towns as a part of the much bigger social engineering orchestrated by the people, the so-called the good and great. And even if we, for example, most of the Dalits are landless, and if they have got a little piece of land, they are usually located either at the higher ground, and they cannot have access to irrigation land, they cannot have access to irrigation water. Even if they have a little piece of land, they are which are irrigable, they are again right at the tail end of the canal. And because the settlements are arranged in such a way that even to get simple facility like electricity connections, they have to get it all the way from mainline all the way to their towns and their little village. And they, of course, they cannot just get the electricity flown through their houses. They have to get it through somebody's field, and that somebody's field oftentimes happens to be an individual from higher caste, and he or she always is in the commanding positions, and people who have fallen victim of the social engineering, the so-called gentrifications. They continue to depend on higher caste people, and in order to receive those services, the amount of effort and the investments they are likely to make is comparatively higher than the people in the lower, people from the higher caste. We call that transaction cost. First thing, that they have less access to services, and even if they want to access services, the cost associated with accessing the services are relatively higher amongst the Dalits than the higher caste people. And I should imagine it's probably the same case around. It's probably similar around the world in comparable situations. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Vishnu. Quickly over to Rohan.
I'm sorry for the problem. I would like to take my words back that there is no leader. I know that there is Nagorik Uddhav, there is BDR, and they are working for it. But the thing is, right now, there is more than thousands of people. Like in my city, we are houseless, if we can say, because the city corporation, they said that they will be making a building for us, but they throw out us, and they say they stop the work. Then in Dhaka city, the mayor is saying they have to evacuate the colony. Then there is another Kamlapur station. There is like almost 4,000 people. They've been told to move to another place. So there is no one who is talking about these things in like upper level. Then there is one education. So I have grown up in the Dalit community. I didn't saw anyone from Bangladesh except my aunt and Tamanna auntie, who's from Dalit community itself. They like except themselves. I didn't saw anyone who represented Dalit community to the world, like from Bangladesh community. I'm saying, like from India, I know there is like a lot of people. So I'm saying like NGOs are doing works, like I'm saying that they're not, but at what level? Because we do not have graduates, like not even 10 graduates, if I can say, like from Dalit community as I know. So this was my like problem, and if we can encourage them to get the education, proper education, and talk about our issues to national level, then I think like we can do something for it. And I know Moni Rani, like she is also working with Dalit Nari Forum to encourage women. But after coming, like after I met Paul sir and Johannes in New York, I got to know that there is more opportunities than that, like in UN, like it's really broad way to work. So this is my point, like we are not getting the proper opportunities, we are not getting like the encouragement. So as we are Dalit, we are like cleaners. We have financial issues to work on, like for the education we need to pay for. Government pays for 10th class. After that, you need to carry on your own education, like by your own expenses. We get like low payments, and because of that, people they fear. In one word, they say that what's the point of doing studying? Because there is no one who set the example like this is what you will be in a place if you are like proper educated. So this was my problem that I wanted to talk about.
Yes, thank you, Rohan. I think you've made very, very critical points. And, at this juncture, there's just one quote that I remember from Baba Sahib Ambedkar, where he says, stand on your own feet and fight as best as you can for your rights. So educate yourselves, carry on your agitation and organize your forces. Power and prestige will come to you through struggle. So I don't think anybody else could sort of sum up our struggles like he did. So thank you very much.